The movie begins in a city in Japan. There, we are introduced to a young man named Arisu. At the moment, he is in prison. But Arisu was once the leader of a gang called Notarios. He had been practicing martial arts since he was very young. He even earned a black belt in karate at one point. Arisu believed that when he grew up, he would become a genius fighter. But his luck was very bad, because when he was only 7 years old, both of his parents passed away. And from that point on, he was raised by his aunt and uncle. However, Arisu had one problem. He would get angry very easily. Arisu also became involved with a motorcycle gang because he had a special passion for motorcycles. So later on, he eventually became the leader of that motorcycle gang himself. Then one day, his gang was competing in a motorcycle race against another gang. But holding races on the city streets like that was illegal. So while the two gangs were racing, Arisu suddenly got caught by the police. As a result, he was sentenced to nearly 1 year in prison. Before long, the day of his release finally arrived. When Arisu walked out of the prison guard told him that from now on, he should leave the gang life behind and become a better person. He said that Arisu had a bright future ahead of him. But Arisu replied, "You do not need to worry about any of that." Just then, two members of a rival gang showed up. They started making fun of Arisu, and they kept asking him over and over what prison food tasted like. Arisu became extremely angry at them, and right there on the spot, he started beating them up, even though the prison guard kept trying to stop him. But Arisu refused to listen. As a result, he beat them so badly that they were left in terrible condition. Because of this, Arisu's prison sentence was extended by another year. Before long, that year passed as well. And when Arisu was finally released again, the same prison guard said to him, "I am sure you have learned your lesson this time. But because of what you did last time, you were not granted a full release. Even though you are out of prison, you all remain under police supervision for the next year. So stay away from all illegal activities." Without saying a word, Arisu went straight to his aunt and uncle's house. His aunt and uncle loved him very much, especially his aunt. She always looked after him as if he were her own son. Arisu's aunt and uncle owned a very small shop, so after being released from prison, Arisu became busy helping his aunt and uncle with their shop. A few days later, an officer came to monitor Arisu. He had been assigned by the prison. The officer told Arisu's uncle that they should keep a close eye on him from now on. Otherwise, Arisu could end up back in prison again. But Arisu's aunt immediately spoke up in his defense. She told the officer, "Sir, we know Arisu very well. Yes, not that bad. I am sure he'll stay on the right path this time. Besides, he wasn't a bad person before either. He was set up." But the officer replied, "Always remember one thing. A criminal can never truly become a good person. One day you all see that this criminal will become a disaster for your family." Meanwhile, Arisu heard every word the officer was saying. He was getting extremely angry. He wanted to beat the officer up right then and there, but somehow he managed to control himself and walked outside. He headed straight toward an electric pole. Then he started punching the pole and yelling at the top of his lungs. But just then, a girl named Chiharu walked up behind him. The moment Arisu saw Chiharu, he immediately went silent. The truth was, Arisu had been in love with Chiharu for a long time, but he had never been able to tell her how he felt. Chiharu told him not to stand in the middle of the street shouting like that. Then she walked away. Arisu became very nervous because the girl he liked had just seen him in such an angry state. Later, while heading home, Arisu suddenly spotted a motorcycle. It happened to be one of his favorite models, so he sat down beside it and started admiring it, running his hand over it. But at that moment, the owner of the motorcycle showed up. His name was Abi. As soon as he arrived, Abi started treating Arisu rudely. He asked Arisu how he dared to go near his bike, but Arisu did not want any trouble, so he quietly started walking away. Then Abi shouted, "Hey, where do you think you're going without answering me? Or did my words scare you that much? If just hearing me talk makes you this nervous, then if I actually beat you up, you would probably wet your pants." Hearing that made Arisu furious. so he challenged Abi to a fight. Abi then took him to a more secluded area to settle it. Then the fight between the two of them began. But before the fight started, Arisu tried to explain his fighting skills to Abi. He told Abi that he was still under police supervision. He had spent an extra year in prison for beating up 2 people, so there was no way he wanted to get into another fight. But Abi didn't care at all. He still got ready to fight Arisu. It soon became clear that Arisu's fighting skills were far superior. He beat Abi so badly that he left him in terrible shape. And within a short time, Abi realized that he had picked a fight with the wrong person, so he quickly admitted defeat.
As Arisu was about to leave, Abi called out to him from behind. He told Arisu not to let anyone know that he had lost the fight, because he was the deputy leader of a motorcycle gang called Kalahito. If everyone found out about this, he would lose all of his reputation. After all, Kalahito was the gang of the biggest gangster in the area. Hearing that made Arisu very excited. He told ABI that he had also been the leader of a motorcycle gang himself.
After that, Arisu started talking with Abi because he had a deep interest in motorcycles. So Arisu asked Abi to tell him more about the Kalahito gang. Abi explained that Kalahito was currently the largest motorcycle gang around. At present, the gang had a total of 100 members, and those 100 members were divided into different groups. In other words, the Kalahito gang was made up of several separate divisions, and each division had its own leader. The first group in the Kalahito gang was called Taguchi. Taguchi was also the name of that group's leader. He was a highly skilled judo fighter. Because of that, very few people could stand against him in a fight. The second group was called Meguro. It was led by a young man named Meguro. But Meguro was no ordinary guy. He possessed a special ability. His body was incredibly fast. As a result, he could fight at an extremely high speed. And the third group was called Keigo, because the leader of that group was a young man named Keigo. Keigo was also a track and field athlete, and to this day, he had never lost a single fight. And the fourth group is called Sogoryu, because this group is led by 2 young men named Sogo and Ryu. Both of them are highly skilled fighters. Arisu then asks which one of them is the strongest. Abi tells him that the strongest of them all is the leader of the Kalahito gang. His name is Tanzawa. All of those groups are ultimately controlled through him, and Tanzawa is different from everyone else. To this day, no one has ever been able to defeat him in a fight. So Arisu learns a lot about the gang from Abi. Later, while Arisu was working at the shop with his aunt and uncle as usual, an unexpected guest showed up. Arisu was surprised to see that it was Abi. Abi had followed him and figured out where the shop was. Arisu then noticed that his aunt was treating Abi very warmly. She kept bringing him all kinds of food, because Abi had told her that he and Arisu were very good friends. And Arisu's aunt was extremely happy to hear that, because a guy like Arisu had finally managed to make a friend. So she even let Abi try their special dishes for free. Abi was so happy that he started eating every dish she brought out. Just then, a news report came on the TV. The report was about a car accident. Illegal drugs had been found inside the vehicle involved in the crash, and the driver had been driving under the influence of those drugs. That was why such a serious accident had happened. After watching the report, Abi said, "I know everything about the mastermind behind this drug business. This entire drug operation is being run by a gangster organization called Bankurakan. The Bankurakan group does not just deal in drugs. Almost every illegal activity and illegal business in the city is connected to this gang, and the leader of the entire organization is a man named Kazimasa. Ahayas an extremely powerful person. Ahai uses all kinds of strategies to keep the drug business running. Every month he organizes a special event for drug dealers, and during that event, whichever gang member sells the most drugs receives a huge cash bonus from Kazimasa, Athatas, why his drug business stays highly profitable throughout the entire year. Kazimasa had 2 special men working for him. One of them was named Koji, and the other was named Kenji. Koji had a somewhat large face, and Kenji always wore a mask. Today, the Bankurakan group was holding another event. It was the day when Kazimasa would hand out bonuses. But just then, a man named Harikawa showed up. Several of his companions were with him as well. Harikawa was demanding compensation from Kazimasa, because earlier that day, a member of the Bankurakan group had crashed into his car. As a result, his vehicle had been damaged, and the person responsible was Kazimasa's special member, Kenji. Kazimasa immediately apologized to Harikawa. Then he started beating Kenji and even split his head open. He also gave Harikawa 1 million in compensation. However, as Harikawa was about to leave, Kazumasa called him back. He said, you wanted compensation, and I gave it to you. But because of you, one of my team members got injured. Now he needs money for treatment. So give back the money I just paid you." Harikawa laughed after seeing how clever Kazumasa was. Then he said, are you seriously trying to trick me? There is no way I am giving that money back. If you have any other offer, then let me hear it." Kazumasa replied, fine. I'll give you one last offer. You will have to fight me right here. If you win the fight, you can leave with all the money. But if I win, you'll have to give the money back to me. Harikawa agreed to the proposal because the idea of a fight sounded very interesting to him. After that, both of them got ready to fight. Within moments, a brutal fight broke out between them. But it quickly became clear that Kazumasa's fighting skills were far superior. In fact, he was so powerful that Harikawa couldn't land a single hit on him. Eventually, Kazumasa beat him so badly that he was left in terrible condition. At that point, one of Harikawa's men stepped in to save him. He told Kazumasa that they would return the money and leave immediately. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, we see Arisu again. He was on his way home after buying supplies for his aunt's shop. But just then, Abby showed up in front of him. Abby wanted to take Arisu to a bowling club, a place where various gangsters usually gathered. Abby wanted to introduce Arisu to the people there. Arisu happily agreed and went with him. On the way, Abby told Arisu that the bowling club they were heading to was no ordinary place, because every few days major fights between different gangs took place there. Not long ago, there had been a massive battle between 4 major gangs at that very club, and Abiya's Kelihito gang had been one of the gangs involved. At the bowling club, we see a young man named Ryu. He was a member of the Kelihito gang. Several other members of the Kelihito gang were there with him. While at the club, Ryu noticed his younger sister, Yuli. This immediately made him angry. He told Yuli to leave the place at once, because all kinds of gangsters regularly came and went from that club. Yuli got upset with her brother and walked away. At that same moment, Abby arrived with Arisu. Meanwhile, Ryu was getting ready to leave. Since his sister had stormed off angrily, he wanted to go after her and calm her down. Just then, Arisu said that he wanted to go with him because he considered himself an expert at cheering people up. But Abby immediately pulled Arisu aside. Then he asked him if he had come there just to show interest in girl. Arisu jokingly scolded Abby in response. A young man named Kenji happened to see that. He immediately rushed toward Arisu, ready to attack him. Because Kenji deeply respected Abby, he considered Abby his idol, so he thought Arisu was disrespecting him. However, Abby quickly explained that Arisu was actually his friend. Kenji then told Arisu that Abby was his boss. He said that he didn't even respect the leader of the Kelihito gang as much as he respected Abby. But hearing that made 2 members named Taguchi and Meguro very angry. They were just about to start a fight with Kenji, because Kenji was praising Abby while completely ignoring them. In their eyes, Kenji was looking down on them because of his admiration for Abby. After all, they also held important positions within the group, just like Abby. So why should Kenji respect only Abby? But Arisu stepped in and stopped Taguchi and Meguro. He told them not to be jealous of Abby within their own team. However, Meguro then started threatening Arisu. He said, who the hell are you to speak about matters inside our team? Just because you came here with Abby, do you think you're one of us now? If that's what you think, then listen carefully. There is no place in our team for a nobody like you. 1 punch from me would be enough to put you flat on the ground. As he said those things, everyone around them started laughing at Arisu. Arisu became extremely angry, and with a single punch, he shattered a glass nearby. Seeing that, everyone was left completely stunned. Arisu then said to everyone, I am not afraid of gangsters like you. The only thing I am afraid of is prison. That's why I don't want to beat you all up and end up back in jail. While Arisu was saying all of this, Tanzawa suddenly arrived. He was the main leader of the entire Kelihito gang. However, Tanzawa had a very cute personality, and he always liked to stay relaxed and carefree. So Tanzawa casually greeted Arisu in a very stylish way. Arisu then said to him, So, do you want to fight me too? If that's the case, then take a look at yourself first. How are you even the leader of this gang? I honestly cannot understand that. And what is up with that hairstyle? Arisu kept throwing comments like these at Tanzawa. He even said that Tanzawa looked like a girl, even though Abi kept trying to stop Arisu. But by then, Tanzawa had become extremely angry. He suddenly demonstrated his skills by delivering a powerful kick to a nearby spot. The impact was so strong that Arisu immediately realized that even though Tanzawa looked harmless, he was incredibly powerful. Tanzawa then said to Arisu, do you want to fight me? If you do, I'll give you an address. Come there and fight me. Arisu immediately became interested in fighting him, but Abi kept telling him to stop. Even so, Arisu refused to back down. But just then, a girl came up behind them and shouted for everyone to stop. Arisu looked forward and realized that the girl was Chiharu, the girl he had loved for many years. The moment he saw Chiharu, he was completely shocked. However, it turned out that every member of the Kelihito gang was afraid of Chiharu. They listened to everything she said, and they respected her greatly. As soon as Chiharu arrived, she started pulling on Tanzawa's cheeks. She scolded him and told him to keep his team away from fights. But when Arisu saw Chiharu pulling Tanzawa's cheeks, he became extremely jealous. So he said to her, "Why is a girl getting involved in the problems of a bunch of guys? You should stay away from these gangsters." The moment Chiharu heard that, she walked over and slapped Arisu hard across the face. Arisu couldn't understand what had just happened. He had no idea why Chiharu was so angry. Afterward, Arisu learned that Chiharu worked part-time at the bowling club and that she had a very good relationship with everyone in the Kelihito gang. However, a little while later, Taguchi tried to start trouble with Arisu again, but Tanzawa stopped him because Chiharu had told them not to fight. So Tanzawa put an end to all the conflict with Arisu right there. Later, Arisu and Abi were sitting together and talking. Arisu asked Abi about Chiharu. He wanted to know what her connection was to the Kelihito gang and why everyone listened to her so much. Abi then explained that Chiharu's older brother had once been the former leader of the Kelihito gang. He was an incredibly strong man with a kind heart. But one day, a massive fight broke out between several gangs. And during that fight, Chiharu's brother was seriously injured and lost his life. After losing her brother, Chiharu was completely devastated. She almost went out of her mind from grief. After that incident, Tanzawa felt extremely guilty because he had failed to save his teammate, so he personally took responsibility for Chiharu. From that day on, he treated her like his own little sister, and everyone in the gang cared deeply about her. In fact, they all tried their best to do whatever Chiharu asked of them, because back then, every member of the gang had made a promise together. They promised that they would look after Chiharu for the rest of their lives. And ever since her brother's death, Chiharu had hated fighting. That was why she became extremely angry whenever she saw gang members fighting or causing trouble. After learning all of this, Arisu felt really bad. But just then, Tanzawa showed up. He started joking around with Arisu. Tanzawa said, "Hey, you're like a little brother to me. I was just messing around with you earlier. You didn't take it seriously, did you? Anyway, let me tell you something important. I do not really have a family. I'm completely alone. I do not even have a place I can truly call home. So take us to your house today. We can all hang out together and have some fun." But Arisu replied, "That's pretty strange. Today was the first time I ever met you guys, and now you already want to come to my house? Besides, I cannot really take you there anyway. I live at my aunt's house myself." Still, Arisu was quite surprised by the way the members of the Kelihito gang behaved, because nothing about them made them seem like gang members. The next day, Abi was working out, and Arisu was there with him. But while they were training, a young man named Sogo came over to Abi. Sogo then told Abi that several members of the Bankurakan group had badly beaten some of their gang members, so they needed to do something to teach them a lesson. Since Abi was the deputy leader of the gang, it was up to him to make a decision. After thinking it over, Abi said that this was not the right time to fight the Bankurakan group, because their team members still needed a lot more training. As he said that, Abi demonstrated how they should actually fight in battle. Later that night, everyone in the Kelihito gang was discussing ways to defeat the Bankurakan group. Meanwhile, Arisu went to see Chiharu that same night with some flowers, but Chiharu was crying as she thought about her brother. While crying, she said to Arisu, being left alone in life is even more painful than death. That's something I realized after my brother died. That's why I hate anything that takes away the people we love. And that's exactly why I hate fighting. After hearing this, Arisu began to understand something. The fighting that he had always considered a part of his life. The fighting that had inspired him to become a fighter since childhood could also destroy someone's life. Because of that realization, Arisu became angry with himself, and he struck himself hard in the head. The blow was so strong that his head started bleeding, but Chiharu immediately came over and said, have you lost your mind? Why are you blaming yourself after hearing about my pain? As she said that, Chiharu used a handkerchief to clean the blood from Arisu's head. But just then, they noticed that the Bankurakan group had arrived at the bowling club. Their leader was Kazimasa. They had come there to threaten the Kelihito gang, because the two gangs had been enemies for a very long time, and it was the Bankurakan gang that had killed Chiharu's brother. The moment Chiharu saw them, she ran toward them. Then she shouted at Kazimasa and told him to leave. She yelled, have not you done enough already? Was killing my brother not enough for you? Why did you come here again? The moment she said that, Kazimasa slapped Chiharu so hard that she fell to the ground. Arisu became furious. He immediately stepped forward and told Kazimasa, do not ever make that mistake again, because if you do, you all die by my hands. One of Kazimasa's men then struck Arisu with tremendous force. As a result, Arisu was seriously hurt on the spot. This made every member of the Kelihito gang absolutely furious. Kenji was just about to attack Kazimasa, but Tanzawa stopped him. Then he looked at Kazimasa and said, do you want to fight us again? Kazimasa replied, I have not even had a real fight with you yet. I'll show you what a real fight looks like. Tanzawa then said, fine. Then why do not you and your team set a date? I'll show you what a real fight looks like too. And all those illegal businesses you're running across the city, we are going to destroy every one of them very soon. After hearing that, Kazimasa said, well, it sounds like I'll have to fight you after all. Make sure all of you are ready. We'll be seeing each other very soon. With that, Kazimasa left the place, along with his entire team. The next day, Arisu was helping his uncle with cooking at the shop, but then another unexpected guest showed up. This time, it wasn't at Abi. It was Tanzawa, the leader of the Kelihito gang. Tanzawa told Arisu's aunt that he was Arisu's friend. That made her extremely happy. She immediately started serving Tanzawa lots of food for free. While eating, Tanzawa kept joking around with Arisu. Just then, 3 customers entered the shop. They started making fun of Arisu. They deliberately kept ordering him around. When Arisu tried to protest, they mocked him and called him a waiter in a disrespectful way. Tanzawa felt very bad after seeing that, so he quietly left the shop and sat outside. Later, when the 3 customers came out, Tanzawa beat them up all by himself. He made them apologize for what they had said. Meanwhile, Arisu was getting ready to go out for a while, but when he stepped outside, he saw that Tanzawa was still sitting there, and the same 3 customers who had insulted him were lying there after getting beaten up. Arisu immediately realized that Tanzawa was responsible. Tanzawa then said, come on, let us go hang out together like 2 friends. But Arisu replied, friends? What do you mean, friend? When exactly did I become your friend? And stop coming here and eating for free. Let me tell you one more thing. If you feel like fighting, then go do it somewhere else. Do not ever come in front of our shop and pull something like this again. Already under police supervision as it is. After that, Arisu went out with Tanzawa. Tanzawa then took him to a bench and sat down beside him. Then Tanzawa told Arisu that since he had already gotten involved with Kazimasa, Kazimasa would not let him off easily. He could attack him at any time, so Arisu should avoid being alone as much as possible. Meanwhile, we see the Bankurakan gang. Yuli, Ryua's younger sister, was there, because after falling in with the wrong crowd, she had joined their group. While she was there, Yuli learned from Kazimasa that he was preparing a major plan, a plan that would allow him to wipe out the entire Kelihito gang. Yuli was one of Kazimasa's most trusted people, so he openly discussed all of his plans in front of her. On the other side, Arisu had invited Abi, Tanzawa, and the rest of the team to his aunt's shop that day. His aunt was overjoyed to see that he had so many friends. She happily served food to everyone. While eating, the gang members were discussing how how they would fight the Bangkarakan gang. As she served the food, Arisu's aunt overheard their conversation. She then walked over to Abi and Tanzawa and said, do you know something? You are Arisu's very first friends. Since he was little, he never made any friends. So, when I saw him finally starting to make friends, no one was happier than I was. I, like all of you, very much as well. But please, do not involve my Arisu in any fights. He has already suffered more than enough at such a young age. I just want him to live a peaceful life now. Just then, Ryu arrived, because Yuli had called him and told him everything. So Ryu gathered everyone and took them away from the shop. However, Abby told them that he would come later. After everyone else had left, Abby stayed behind and spoke with Arisu. He told him, your aunt is absolutely right. You should stay as far away from our gang as possible, especially when it comes to the Bangkarakan gang. You have no reason to get involved with them. Our conflict with the Bangkarakan gang is not your fight. But Arisu replied, you do not get to tell me what I should or should not do with my life. If someone tries to hurt my friends right in front of me, I am not going to let them get away with it. And if that means I have to go back to prison, then so be it. Abi then said to him, do not you ever think about your aunt and uncle? They are the ones who raised you since you were a child, and yet you are not thinking about them at all. What kind of person are you? As soon as he said that, Abby shoved Arisu, and Arisu immediately started hitting him. Arisu shoved Abby so hard that Abby's hand was badly injured. Later, Abby arrived at a gas station because he had sent Sogo there to fill up his motorcycle. When Sogo saw Abi's hand, he immediately asked who had done that to him. Abi replied that Arisu was the one who had caused the injury. He said, that guy Arisu has a serious anger problem. He gets mad over the smallest things. That's why I am really worried about him. I just hope he doesn't get even more involved with the Bangkarakan group. Abi and Sogo were talking about these things, but just then, a large number of Bangkarakan gang members showed up, and they immediately attacked Abi and Sogo. Abi and Sogo tried their best to fight back against all of them. Meanwhile, the rest of the Kelihito gang was hanging out at the bowling club. But at that very moment, Kazimasa arrived there with his men, even though he was supposed to set a date for the fight. But he knew very well that if the Kelihito gang had enough time to prepare, his group wouldn't stand a chance against them. So through Ryu, Kazimasa had learned about a secret location, a place where all the members of the Kelihito gang often gathered together. And today, seeing the perfect opportunity, they had come to attack them there. As for why Ryu betrayed his own team and revealed their secret location, we'll find that out later. Kazimasa and his men immediately launched an attack on the Kelihito gang. A massive fight broke out between the two groups. At the same time, none of the Kelihito gang members could understand how the Bangkarakan gang had discovered their secret hideout. Meanwhile, Abi and Sogo were fighting fiercely against their attackers. Even though Abi's hand was already badly injured, he still continued fighting with everything he had. But just then, Kenzo, one of Kazimasa's men, rammed a car directly into Abi. The impact was so powerful that Abi suffered severe injuries and collapsed to the ground. On the other side, while the Kelihito gang member Kizo was fighting, Kazimasa came up behind him and stabbed him with a knife. In the same way, several other members were badly injured before the Bangkarakan gang finally left the area. Everyone immediately rushed to Kezoa's side, and they quickly arranged to get him to the hospital. Meanwhile, Abi's condition had become extremely serious, but no one had learned about what had happened to him yet, so Abi remained lying there alone. On the other hand, while Arisu was busy working at the shop, Koji, a member of the Kelihito gang, arrived with several of his men. Arisu immediately told Koji to leave because he didn't want his aunt to find out about any of this. But Koji shoved Arisu so hard that he crashed through a glass panel and fell inside the shop. When Arisu's aunt saw Koji and his men, she warned them that if they didn't leave immediately, she would call the police. But Koji wasn't scared at all, because he knew very well that if the police showed up, Arisu would be the first person they arrested. After all, Arisu was still under police supervision, so Koji and his men started smashing up the entire shop. When Arisu tried to stop them, Koji and his men beat him badly. Then they completely trashed the shop and left. Arisu felt terrible after seeing what had happened. Just then, he received a phone call. He learned that Abiya's condition was very serious. So despite being injured himself, he immediately went to the hospital to see him. Meguro, Taguchi, and several other gang members were already there. Chiharu was there as well. When Arisu saw Abi, he realized that his condition had become much worse. He still had not regained consciousness. Meanwhile, when Tanzawa arrived and saw Abiya's condition, he became furious with the Bankurakan gang because he had not been present during the fight. So he was ready to go and take revenge all by himself. But just then, several police officers arrived. They began questioning Tanzawa about the fight. They wanted to know why they had caused such a disturbance in a public place. However, when one of the officers spotted Arisu, he was about to arrest him. But at that moment, Tanzawa suddenly started beating Arisu. He was trying to convince the police that Arisu was actually their enemy and that he had no connection to the Kelihito gang. So Tanzawa kept hitting him over and over. The police stepped in and stopped Tanzawa. After that, they became convinced that Arisu was not a member of the gang. As a result, the police arrested Tanzawa along with several of his companions and took them away, and Arisu remained sitting there silently. Later, Keizo was on his way to take Chiharu home, but just then, Kazumasa showed up. Several of his men were with him. Keizo tried to fight all of them by himself, but Kazumasa's men quickly overwhelmed him and beat him badly. Then they forcibly dragged Chiharu into their vehicle. After that, they told Keizo that if he wanted to save Chiharu, he should come to the abandoned factory, the same place where the two gangs had fought before. With that, they kidnapped Chiharu and drove away. Keizo desperately tried to stop their vehicle, but he was hit hard and thrown to the ground. The next morning, Tanzawa and several of his companions were released from the police station. Ryu was waiting there to pick them up. As soon as he saw them, he apologized. Everyone was confused and asked why he was apologizing. With his head lowered, Ryu confessed the truth. He admitted that he was the one who had betrayed the gang. He was the one who had revealed their secret location to the Bankurakan gang because Kazumasa had threatened him. He told Ryu that if he didn't give them the information, they would kill his sister, Yuli. So he had been forced to tell them about the location. The moment Taguchi heard that, he became furious and was about to attack Ryu. But Tanzawa stopped him. Then Tanzawa looked at Ryu and said, From today on, you're no longer a member of this gang. So never show your face in front of us again. Ryu apologized once more and walked away. Just then, Keiji called Meguro. He informed him that the Bankurakan gang had kidnapped Chiharu and taken her to the abandoned factory, the same factory where the gangs had fought before. When Tanzawa heard this, he became extremely angry. He then told everyone that his real enemy was Kazumasa and that he would personally settle things with him today. He didn't want any more members of his gang getting hurt because of him. So he ordered everyone to stay behind and not follow him. After saying that, Tanzawa started heading toward the factory alone. But a short while later, he realized that all of his friends were following him because none of them were willing to leave him on his own. At that moment, Arisu arrived and joined the group as well because he had also learned what had happened to Chiharu. However, Tanzawa did not want Arisu getting involved in any of this. So he told him that he was not a member of the Kelihito gang and that he should stay out of it. But Arisu ignored everything he said. He continued following them and kept saying, I am not going there for the Kelihito gang. I am going there for Chiharu. So there was no need for anyone to worry about him. Soon, all of them arrived at the abandoned factory. The entire Bankurakan gang was already waiting for them there, and they had prepared thoroughly for the fight. So the moment Tanzawa and his friends arrived, the Bankurakan gang rushed at them. They began attacking them with various weapons. Even though Tanzawa and his group consisted of only 6 people, they were still defeating the members of the Bankurakan gang one by one. Tanzawa, in particular, was an incredibly skilled fighter. Arisu and the others were also fighting very well. However, because the Bankurakan gang had far more members, Tanzawa and his friends were unable to get inside the factory. But just then, someone arrived in a car. He drove the vehicle directly in front of the factory entrance, creating a way for Tanzawa and the others to get inside. It turned out to be none other than Ryu. Everyone was happy to see him. After that, They used the vehicle to make their way into the factory one by one. Meanwhile, Arisu, Tanzawa, and Meguro made it inside. Together, they began beating up the gang members inside the building. Then Arisu spotted Koji. Without hesitation, he struck him hard in the head because Koji had destroyed their shop the day before. Meguro then told Arisu to head up to the upper floor, while he stayed behind to fight Koji himself. Meguro possessed tremendous strength. He was hitting so hard that he was actually cracking the walls, and when he finally landed a powerful blow on Koji, Koji took a direct hit to the head and was knocked unconscious. Meguro single-handedly defeated everyone around him. After that, they all made their way to the upper floor, where Arisu was already headed. Chiharu was being held captive there. At that moment, Kenji told them that they had done a great job making it this far, because what he had done to Abi, he was now going to do the same thing to every one of them. Hearing Abi's name made both Arisu and Tanzawa furious. Without wasting another second, they launched an attack. Arisu started fighting Kenji and his men. Meanwhile, Tanzawa headed straight toward the upper floor, where Kazimasa was waiting with his men. Within moments, Tanzawa defeated everyone standing in his way. Soon, only Kazimasa was left. Kazimasa then got ready to fight him. A brutal battle broke out between the two of them. Although Kazimasa was an excellent fighter, Tanzawa was filled with rage that day, and every time he thought about Abi, his anger only grew stronger. As a result, he beat Kazimasa mercilessly. At one point, he even jumped onto his face and crushed it badly. Kazimasa finally admitted defeat. Meanwhile, Arisu had defeated everyone in his path. Now his final fight was against Kenzo. Kenzo removed his mask and began fighting Arisu. At first, Arisu was struggling against him because Kenzo constantly trained and practiced fighting. But then Arisu remembered the fighting techniques Abi had once demonstrated while teaching some members of the Kelihito gang. Recalling those techniques, Arisu began fighting differently. And using one of Abi's special punching techniques, he finally landed a powerful blow to Kenzo's head. Kenzo immediately collapsed to the ground. After that, Arisu continued hitting him relentlessly. Before long, Kenzo finally gave up. At last, all of the fighting came to an end. Then Tanzawa came over. He and Arisu went to rescue Chiharu. As everyone was preparing to leave, Kazimasa suddenly appeared behind them once again. But this time, he was pointing a gun directly at Tanzawa. At the same moment, Kenzo managed to get back on his feet. Seeing this, Tanzawa prepared himself for another fight. Just as Kazimasa was about to shoot Tanzawa, Kenzo struck Kazimasa in the head and killed him, because he knew that their gang had been completely destroyed. And if he didn't make peace with the Kelihito gang now, he probably wouldn't survive in the future. So he ended up killing his own boss. However, Tanzawa wanted to make absolutely sure that Kazimasa was dead, so he was about to shoot him. But Kenzo told everyone to leave immediately, because they could already hear police sirens approaching from a distance. Kenzo then showed them a back route leading out of the factory. As a result, Arisu and everyone else escaped through that exit. Meanwhile, Ryu was waiting outside with a car. They all quickly got into Ryua's vehicle, and together, they sped away from the factory. By the time the police arrived, not a single member of the Kelihito gang was still there. When the police questioned Kenzo about the fight, he claimed that the conflict had happened within their own gang. Because of that, the Kelihito gang managed to avoid trouble this time, and their long-standing feud with the Bankoraken gang finally came to an end. Afterward, everyone headed to the hospital together to visit their friend Abi, and that is where the story comes to an end. So, what do you think about gangster movie stories like this? And if you'd like to see more movies like this in the future, be sure to let me know in the comments below. That's all for today's video. I'll see you again in another new video. Until then, take care, stay safe, and stay healthy.